welcome Kelly to our fourth episode, I think. Um,
Yeah,
I'm just recovering a little bit from a cold, so I'm at like 50% brain capacity.
mm,
So, but I'll try and keep pace with you. So, where do you want to start? Do you want to start with your frantic call? We should just start with your frantic calling me at 4 in the morning Bali time, and I don't know what time it was over there. It was probably like 10 p.m. Istanbul time.
it was sometime in the night. I was calling you to let you know about Portals, which is like this NFT drop that just happened on Solana, and it's the first like working really intricate demo that I've seen of a metaverse in that space. And they had integrations with Audius where you could create they had a jukebox where you could use files from Audius and stream them in the room like you were listening to a radio stream, but in the room. And then they're also doing this integration with Bonafide to make your names somehow integrated with the rooms. I'm not quite sure. Your like dot soul name.
So this is where you and I are like approaching NFTs from completely two different vectors, because you are doing all the art NFTs, and like my non-artistic brain or whatever, I'm just like, oh, I'll just buy up a bunch of domains on Bonafide, and that'll at least be one way for me to start to invest in the NFT space on Solana.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think that they're gonna do an airdrop like where they just give a bunch of FIDA coins in, because they're already like traded coins.
Yeah.
So the idea is that because ENS domains airdropped, 100 to 200 coins to like people who had .eth names to get the market going, to like create liquidity and like to reward early adopters to who created the network effect in the .eth names. And when I had first bought my name Sherkan.eth, I had not it was Trevin who had told me. He's like, actually, this is an NFT, and that was the summer, and I still wasn't super aware of like. I just thought NFTs were like art related things. I didn't realize
Mm-hmm.
that, oh, it's one of the applications of NFTs is you can make human usable addresses, aka names, in Web3 in the crypto world. Because if you say, oh yeah, just send me money to 50 numbers, like we literally can't remember past whatever 7 numbers. Do you remember back in the day when people had like phone numbers and you'd have to remember them? You and
Yeah,
I are old enough, we're older millennials, where we remember phone numbers, because nobody
I
does
love
that.
that.
Nobody remembers phone numbers anymore, right?
I remember like three, I think. That's it.
In case your phone gets sniped, you need someone to call.
I used to know like 20 at least off the
Yeah.
top of my head.
um so tell me, okay, so portals, but the crucial thing is that it's the first major, or maybe first ever, metaverse application on Solana. Is that correct?
There's a few projects that are like trying to build one. Solsteads is this other NFT project that was originally just like drawings of homes, and they were building out their metaverse. And then this other NFT project called Noia Ducks, I think, is building one too, but I'm not like 100% sure on the progress of those projects. But I just know that this one was the furthest along and the most anticipated because they Solana had a hackathon, and this project won second in the gaming category for it.
Amazing.
So people are really
And
excited.
literally right after you told me, well, like you called me and were like, hey, you missed, I called you back like late, whenever I woke up, or it may have been like later that night. It might have been like 18 hours later. I call you and I'm like, so tell me about Portals, whatever. And you minted 2 at 1.5 Sol.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
uh $300 each.
it's like 250 now because Solana went down to 200.
But at the time
Yeah.
it was like $300 worth of.
It's still like 250.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you minted 2 for $500,
Hmm.
and then uh and then they immediately, once the minting was over, the market, the like floor price immediately went up to 8 Solana,
Hmm.
8 Sol.
Yeah, yeah. And now it's at like 17, 18.
Oh really?
Hmm.
Oh, so even when I called you and you were like, you should really buy this, even at 8 Sol, and I'm like, dude, I don't want to spend $2,000 on this thing. I need time to like research it. How long had you
People,
spent researching Portals?
um, I played around with the demo. I had gotten the links from one of my other discords, and I just saw, oh, this looks really interesting. You have a lot of things you can interact with. The style is like kind of Minecrafty, that graphic style, so it's
Mhm.
familiar. And I saw all these integrations, and I was like, wow, okay, this is a really put together project. And then I talked to the developer, and he actually responded to me, probably because I'm in the Dragons group.
You already now
And
have a little bit of status in this subgroup of a subgroup. NFTs, drag. You're not even like the whatever the Solana monkey business is like the tier 1 of like NFTs on Solana, which is like Solana is like the tier 2 of NFTs because Ethereum is still like the king. And
mhm,
so right now it's still subgroup of subgroup, but still you have some, the wonderful thing that we're starting to understand about human behavior around NFTs is that NFTs are a digital brand, but also like it's like a pass to a club,
yeah,
right? Because of the limitations on the number of people who can hold them, you already have like built-in exclusivity, and then uh, if you hold like a high quality NFT with a good community, you already have either you have money to buy in later, or you were savvy enough to get in and go through all the hoops. So you already like, they don't really know you, but imbued in your NFT is either your wealthy player in the field or your savvy player in the field to some degree. That's why this guy is responding to you with his limited time.
yeah, yeah. They see this project, and they see, oh, here's somebody who, if they don't if they themselves aren't a whale per se, like someone with a large amount of money, they are somebody who understands how this space works.
Yeah.
And people now are coming to us and saying, like, oh, hey, here's my special group that we talk about projects and we share information, and they're like even more exclusive. And those are like the influencers and their space. So they're trying to like reward us, I guess, for like being a part of this really intense project. And
So well, you're starting out, you're in this NFT space for 8 months or whatever. When did you first start doing 6 months, 4 months? I mean,
really, the first time I like bought an NFT was October.
no, but yeah, we were together when you were
Yeah,
doing that.
yeah,
But
yeah.
no, when did you first join a Discord to start to understand the space? Because you were buying crypto for a
October.
while. Oh, really? You literally
Yeah,
just got started.
yeah,
When we were talking was when you were going hardcore in the space.
yeah,
So it's still early days. Um,
yeah,
it's so funny because so you bought 2 NFTs for $500 and now they've already 10x'd, right? So you
mhm,
on paper you have paper gains of $5,000,
yeah,
which is amazing because like that's how you justify over the long term. I mean, that hopefully the value sustains and then maybe even keeps improving over time. All
Yeah.
indications are that they will, because we're so early in the S curve, and more because of the limitations, like more people are coming in. So that's kind of how you get paid. Have you taken any money off the table? Have you sold any NFTs?
I mean, I have sold, but usually I put that money back into something else that I believe in. And I
Oh,
think
so you're
will,
trading NFTs.
yeah, basically I'm like, I sell it on the marketplace and then I decide like which projects I want to save some for, and then which projects I want to just kind of save the Solana for, like just as a savings, um, to separate from like my trading fund.
Oh,
But
nice.
the big thing right now is that, have you heard of the Art Basel exhibition in Miami?
Yeah, it's all over my Twitter, but I don't know. Like, there's so many things in Twitter that your eyes see, and you can either investigate and figure out what the hell they're talking about. Like, I missed the whole like Solana Lisbon thing. Everybody was talking for like 2 weeks. Everybody's talking about Lisbon, and I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know what they're talking about. And then, sorry, go ahead. Tell me about Art Basel.
Art Basel is like this international art show that's really big in Miami, and they have a whole section there with NFTs for
Oh,
NFTs. And so Olaplex is the main like auction website on Solana, and they chose 10 NFT projects to exhibit in this art thing. And the dragons is one of them. And
oh, wow.
the auction is live right now, and I'm not sure what it's at, but the last one sold for 805 Solana.
What is that? Like $16,000?
It's like over $100,000.
160,000. So wait, 800 times
Like
200
200.
Solana.
Yeah.
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 Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And
Makes you think. We definitely have uh there's some aspects of these art NFTs that are uh tulip bubbly, you know what I mean?
mhm.
Like it's gonna be hard to tell. We won't know until years down the line. Like, some images are worth a ton. Like the Nike brand is worth a fortune, right? And like the guy who owned Tesla.com probably got paid $10 million to sell the domain to Tesla. So like,
Mhm.
um, yeah. So uh, I got. I was telling you, I was messaging you on Discord that I was competing with uh, some people. I had on Bonafide. I had auctions going, and I didn't tell you I had the most expensive NFT price I ever paid was it ended up being like $80, because I had two in Australia that were Adelaide and Gold Coast, and they kept raising the price on me, and
Mhm.
I had to like rush and like load more Solana in, and then like swap it into USDC, and then swap that into FIDA, and then make sure I had
Yeah.
enough Solana in there to do the transactions. So I ended up winning those. And then later, I didn't tell you, some guy from Korea or maybe someone else who thought I was buying do you know Incheon? You know what that
Yeah.
is? It's
Yeah.
like their
City in
airport.
Korea.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
city in Korea. It's like attached. It's like DC, Baltimore, or like San Francisco, Oakland. It's
Uh,
like attached to Seoul, and it's where the airport is. And I bought Incheon, and someone, I'm assuming Korean, was like bidding it up. We just kept going back and forth until finally I paid $80 for it. And uh, that was the most expensive NFT I've paid. So I still am very. I'm my NFTs are like $25 usually.
yeah.
So I'm not used to. That's why I was so. I'm not a player like you where I can drop uh $2,000 on Portals NFT. I didn't even get to Portals yet. Explain let's go back to Portals a little bit and explain, what are you actually buying when you bought a Portals NFT?
It's virtual real estate in their metaverse, basically.
You buy a
And
plot of land?
I think this one's more rooms, and I'm not quite sure on all the details because they're slowly releasing information. But in my current understanding, you have like this card, and it literally looks like an access card, and it like is your lock to your room. And somewhere I read that maybe one access card gives you access to 400 rooms total, but I'm not completely sure if
Okay.
that's correct. So if that's correct, then I have 800 rooms in this virtual real estate that you can do stuff with.
So you buy a Portals room, right?
The access card.
The
Yeah.
access card, and you have 400 rooms attached to the access card.
I think so. I
Are
could
there a
not be
limited
correct.
number of rooms that they're going to have in Portals, or what do they have like a tokenomics inflation rate? Like how many? Because my understanding is a metaverse could, in theory, just keep growing more space as demand comes in, right?
They have 5,000 cards that they printed, and
Okay.
there are three different levels. One is ivory, the second one is onyx, and the third one is vision. And vision is the most rare, and ivory is the most common.
Which ones did you buy?
I have two ivories. So you don't really get to choose. It's just like when you mint it, like you might get a vision, you might get a ivory. And a lot of
Oh, so
people
they
didn't
minted
end up,
at the same price, but then it's a
yes.
random generated.
Yes.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
So that's where like the luck aspect comes in.
That's kind of
And
fair, you know, like
yeah,
I
yeah, it
don't
makes it more fair for sure. And it keeps people incentivized to mint more. But this one was kind of
to
tricky
increase your
because
chances of getting a better one so that you don't
yeah,
have to
yeah.
buy it in on the open market where people believe that it's going to uh, be much more expensive immediately after the
Yeah.
minting. So I don't
Yeah.
understand. This reminds me of the IPO process, and I
It
don't
pretty
know how
much is
familiar.
like that.
Well, I don't know how familiar you are with the IPO process, but in my opinion, and you tell me because like you are a beneficiary of this, but this is going to be a criticism, right? Which is the IPO process is widely discussed as being highly corrupt and favoring bankers. Because what happens is you've got this company, this startup, right? That's raised a ton of money, raised money and executed very efficiently for like 5 years or 10 years or whatever, right? And the point of the IPO is twofold. One is to raise funds from the general public, right? So like small dollar investors, non-accredited investors, non-VCs can then buy into the company, right? And
Yeah.
fund the expansion, right? You raise money from the public so you can build factories or hire more people, whatever, right? That's so
Mhm.
you're there to put more money in a company's bank account. The second thing is to add liquidity to the existing shareholders of uh, let's say Airbnb, right? And
Mhm.
so you want to then have a liquid market that allows the people who have already like the more liquid the market, the more real the price is, right? So like if it's a oh sorry, I hope the sound quality is not going down where I'm calling in from the rainy season in Bali.
I just
So
heard the
anyways,
crackle. That was
oh
it.
you could hear it. My
Just the
apologies.
thunder. No, no,
Um,
it's fine.
so okay, so I'm just describing the IPO process, and let me just point out what the biggest criticism is let's say Airbnb is going to IPO for the real true market price for their IPO is like 100 billion, right? And what happens is the news media and all these bankers, they kind of collude to say that you need to have a pop on the first day, like the price should go up on the first day, right?
Yeah.
And all that means is that you're having a 1 day transfer of wealth. So what they do is Airbnb the night before will sell their shares that they're trying to raise from the public. They'll lock in a price at like 80 billion market cap,
Hmm.
and they'll give that to the bankers. And then the bankers now have bought the shares of the company at a 20% discount. Then the next day, because they know the demand is XYZ high, they'll then start to uh, release the shares on the public exchanges. and demand is very high, so you have this pop on the first day. But all
Yeah.
that is you're immediately transferring all this money right to these bankers for 1 day of holding, right? And this minting process seems exactly like that, which is you're giving the early people an immediate 1 day transfer of wealth into the market. And maybe you can tell me what you think are the benefits and the downsides, because here's what I'm thinking. The NFT process and the whole minting process, you would want to incentivize a community of people who are getting paid, quote unquote, for building the network, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that transfer of wealth, right? You're getting the Portals NFTs at 1 point, did you say 1.5 SOL?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you get the NFT at 1.5 SOL, and then later that day, the real market price is 8 SOL. So you just made 6.5 SOL in the first day, right? For X number of hours of liquidity. Now, you could say that it makes sense to do it that way, to like build, to like to pay the people who are building the liquidity. But I don't know. There's something to think about. Like, how does that
Well,
make
the
any
thing
sense? Like,
is
why would they
you
do that?
don't make any money until you sell. And if you sell and you sell all of your assets, then you're out of the project and you can't continuously benefit from it. So I almost think of like,
But a lot of people do that, right?
yeah, I mean, I think about it like they want to sell on the secondary marketplace to have more holders. And as time goes on, less and less people or more and more people hold them if the demand is high because they're selling them for higher and higher amounts. And I don't know, I think like
So what are
it's
you
a
saying?
risk.
You're saying that they're going to release, they do the initial minting to establish a market price, and then later
Yes.
they do what's called secondary offerings, where they keep releasing more later once the
Well,
market, are
it's
they
not them. Like they don't, the project only minted a certain amount. So in this case, they minted 5,000 and 6,000 wallets tried to get 5,000
but
NFTs.
don't the original builders of Portal keep like half of it for themselves? Don't they keep a
Yeah,
certain amount of them just internally?
it depends on each project. With this one, they have a certain percentage going to the community fund that they use for investing in other partnerships and stuff. I don't remember the exact percentage. I can find it real quick.
Yeah, it
Okay.
would be really interesting to, because what I'm seeing is the economics and the behavior around NFTs is like some sort of hybrid between people who are, like you're saying, buying tickets to a club, but
Mhm.
also you're buying an asset, a security, something that's liquid that can be flipped for money. So you've got a tension there, right? You've got two opposing forces. Like for you, the projects you're saying that you think the only reason you're holding on to Portals, I would say 90% of the reason, in my opinion, is because you're thinking, okay, it's selling at 17 sold now. I bet it'll sell at more than that a year from now, or even 2 years from now, or 3 years from now, right? You're like, I'm buying rooms in the Drake Hotel in Manhattan or wherever it is, right?
Yeah.
So you're not just holding it because you're not playing in Portal's game all day. You're not doing it for consumption. You're doing it for investment.
Yeah. That's how I think of this one specifically. It's an investment in virtual real estate. So I'm staying a part of this project and I'm not selling because I
Yet,
think that yet. I mean, we'll see what happens. It obviously there's a lot of factors, but the most rare ones, the vision cards, have been selling for 600 something to 900 something Solana
Are you
each.
serious? Oh my
Yeah,
God.
because people believe in this project and they see like the growth that has happened, and the person who's behind it is he's a Solana monkey business holder. So
Okay.
he kind of had this co-community vouch for him that was very respected in the Solana community. So people were like, oh, this is a legit project. And the fact that they won the hackathon too made people be like, okay, this is a
This
company
is a
with like
top,
a
this
clear
is a
plan.
top project. And there we don't know what the economics are yet, but it does often happen that in software type industries, it's a winner take all business. Like
Mhm.
all the money is going to the holders of the iOS ecosystem and the Android ecosystem, and zero money goes to the number three, right? Like,
Yeah,
so even
yeah,
though someone could very closely match the iOS user experience, it's like, well, we're just going to go with the number one. Um, and then everybody just gets on board. So there's a very, that's part of the um, specific behaviors around network effect businesses or network effect things, which is everybody, people want to be where other people are and other people want to be where those other people are. And so like they just kind of converge on the best or
yeah.
whatever.
And it's up to each project individually to maintain that momentum and continue the engagement with the community. And I really see as a barrier to all NFTs right now as Discord itself,
Why?
because there's a lot of people who they they want to understand crypto and they want to understand NFTs, but they don't really like Discord. And especially if you don't speak English, it's like really hard to decipher the language that's being used,
I
even
mean,
if it's
well,
in another language.
that's actually part of the reason why I'm pushing to bring it's going to happen inevitably, but I want to help bring Web3, some of the like learnings around what you and I are doing to Indonesia, because this is a market where they're very tech savvy. Like all the
Yeah,
businesses, they don't even, they just start on Instagram. Like they're like, oh, you want to make a business? Make an Instagram page. And then
yeah.
they're like, they don't even have like street signs. They just have like that like number thing where it's like the geolocation pin. You know what I mean? And so like if you want to find someone,
The
you just like,
coordinates.
yeah, the coordinates, like
That's funny.
the GPS. So like they're very tech forward here, and 4G has been around for a couple of years, and it's just going to grow massively. Literally, just before we got on this call, I was reading in Bloomberg that Indonesian government to defeat cryptocurrencies needs to make their own CBDC, central bank digital currency. And I'm thinking in my mind, I'm like, uh, they're early in their what I like to call the hero's journey of learning about crypto. So it's fine, good, start on creating the Indonesian CBDC. It'll be great. Maybe they can, USDC that rides on Solana is awesome.
Yeah.
I
It
literally
they
go
need
ahead.
the stable coins to like
Yeah,
make the whole network function. So
I was
it's
just
in
listening. Go ahead.
government's interest. I think it's in government's interest to create their own stable coins to like make it so you use that as the swap reference when people have to swap or when people do liquidity providing and stuff like that.
Yeah, and
Mm.
my thinking has evolved on this. And maybe I'll keep changing my opinion as more variables change and as the thing keeps moving. It is a complex dynamic system, but I originally thought, years ago, whatever, a couple years ago, I thought, oh, well, everything is just going to go to BTC. Then I was like, oh, well, BTC is like gold and these other things,
And it's
Ethereum
really
maybe is like,
slow.
yeah, and like even with the Lightning Network and all that stuff, like, and then I was shifting to Ethereum, and then I was investigating Cardano, and now I've become very bullish on Solana because the user experience is so awesome. And
Mhm.
but I was really negative on this idea that like government bureaucrats are going to be able to create central bank digital currencies. I'm like, so you get all of the negatives around like you're basically like you completely, the whole point of cash, at least the one benefit of cash was that you had privacy around it. And
Mm,
so now you're going to like, because the one downside of a lot of uh, uh, Web3 tokens, crypto tokens, is that it's like there's no privacy. Like people can literally through a block explorer see every single transaction you have in your wallet, right?
yeah.
So I think there's like solutions on the horizon. Maybe Zcash or something is the solution. But I just thought, I was like, it's a joke. Central bank digital currencies don't mean anything, and it's not going to happen. And now I'm kind of thinking, having used USDC on a Solana wallet, I realized that you might actually see an explosion of currencies, not a contraction of currencies. Because what you could have is like USDC is a token sitting on a Solana network. And
Mhm.
so it's a representation of dollars. It's not actual dollars, but it's effectively dollars. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the money you have in your, Bank of America account is a digital representation of, you know,
The
so I
money
don't,
you have.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. The only difference is that it's like a database that Bank of America controls versus crypto encrypted, like an encrypted lock database. I don't know. There's a lot to unpack in that space.
That's how I'm thinking too, in terms of NFTs and like Solana. Like I started now thinking of things in terms of Solana rather than the dollar amount. And it it kind of skews things a bit because you're like, oh, this is only like zero point 0.8 Solana. And then I'm like, oh, but that's like $160.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I can't, I still have to kind of gauge uh the level
Well,
of
well,
where things are.
well. Let me ask you. Okay, so you're in Istanbul. Istanbul currency, the Turkish currency just crashed like 50%. It's really down 80% in the last decade. I don't know, since even less like 8 years. I think it was at like 3 or 4 back in the day, and now it was at like 8 when I was there, and I think it's at $1 buys 13 Turkish lira right now.
It's yeah, it's kind of been hovering around. Oh, it's 13.56
But
now.
isn't that good for you because you're earning in dollars, right?
It yes, it
Or
is good for me. I still have to do like swap from Solana to USDC to some other thing to cash. So it's not directly like one to one, but I'm still, the fact that I'm making dollars definitely helps me
wait,
a lot.
you're earning in Solana, right? Your
Yeah,
mind is, oh, so that's what you're saying. So
yeah.
yeah, no, that's interesting. It's still something to think about.
So when I
But
see something that's like, oh, this is 1.5 Solana or even two, two is kind of a lot. That's more than I'm really willing to spend on stuff because that's 400 something dollars.
okay,
So
well, here's the real question, right? Let's go back to portals.
yeah,
You're
yeah.
buying real estate in portals, right? You
Mhm.
have two cards. Each card gives you 400 rooms at like different levels, right? Uh,
Yeah.
and are they both in the same level, your cards?
No, they have different numbers. So we don't, I'm not really sure
No,
like
you
which
had three.
numbers
You told me three categories. What were the three
Oh,
again?
oh, oh, yeah, the Ivy, the Onyx, and the Vision. And I
Which
have
one are
like the
your?
most common, the Ivory,
You
two
have two.
Ivories.
Okay, so each card gives you 400 rooms in portals, right?
I think.
And roughly, and one way to get paid in and to swap out into dollars or whatever uh, is to sell it, right? So when you have
Yeah.
real estate, if I just do pure real estate speculation, I buy the farm behind me, the rice field behind me, and then it's called greater fool theory of assets, right? Which is I just need to make money. One way is I just need to find someone else who's willing to pay me more from what I paid, right? So
hmm
if I paid $100 for that rice field behind me, if somebody's willing to pay me 120, I made 20 bucks, right? The other way to intrinsically use that field is I can just have it, and then I can get paid two other ways. I can sow rice and harvest the rice and sell that at market. So I would get, let's say I sold 20, I'm every year I made $20 in profit from rice, or let's say $10 in profit from rice that I sold, 10% profit, right? Or I could rent it out, right? So like if I buy an apartment in New York City, which is what these portals are at, right? It's like real estate. You can get you get paid through rents, right? So
Yeah.
is there a way to get paid in rent for these portal rooms?
Not right now, but I think they will end up doing that because it's in their best interest to have as many of the rooms being used and actually being like generating money.
That's what I'm saying, because right now it reminds me a lot of like these ghost cities I would see in China, where
Yeah.
people buy apartments as a way to just like they want a hard asset as a savings account. And so like
Mhm.
because the inflation rate was so high with the Chinese yuan, everybody would just buy apartments, and that's how they would I remember having conversations with people saying, he was saying like, oh yeah, like because back in the day when I was living in Shanghai, they would developers would come and like if like they'd have these shanty towns in the like middle of the city, and they'd want to like build a bunch of skyscrapers. And so what they would do is they would uh forcibly buy out all the people in these small like ramshackle towns, right? And then they would just give them X number of apartments in the new building. So like
Yeah.
and so the negotiation was, do you get two apartments or three? Is it higher up or lower down? And that was where they would negotiate. But it was like a given that no, we're gonna build like, so like communist China, like it's a weird inverted communist system where it's like hyper capitalist but also hyper communist. It's hard to describe, but anyway, so like they would definitely just do that, and it was like a very straightforward way. And then you would talk to people, and this guy, I remember having conversations over and over again with people, and they'd be like, oh well, I'm ready to get married now. And I would be like, why, what does that mean? And he'd be like, oh well, the building is built, I got two apartments from my grandma, so now I can, because men in China couldn't get married until they had one apartment. And then he was like,
Yeah.
and then I'll have a second one for rent. And then I was like, oh, okay. Like, but at minimum, like men had to have at least one apartment. Otherwise they were like unmarriable, like not marriage material.
Yeah.
So with portals, yeah, the question is like, what are the activities? So you were saying one is you're going to have like jute boxes, like a disco room, right?
I think things are still being developed because it's just so new. They have a demo that people can play at portals.io, I think is the domain
And
name.
do you use VR glasses, or you're just doing it on the thing?
It's just on the screen right now. I know that they're gonna build out the VR for sure. It would be in their best interest to do that. So that's kind of like, yeah, I think each room is gonna probably have specific uses, or you build maybe you can do like a concert venue, which is something I would love to do. Um, and
It's so funny because if you talking about your music career, like a lot of people blow up not because they were always talented and they always had the thing. A lot of times it has to do with the distribution.
yeah,
Like there were intrinsically, what is the talent of someone like Kim Kardashian? I don't know, but she became very famous from her sex tape with Ray J, whatever, 10, 12 years ago, 15 years ago. But she became like hyper famous because she was like the most savvy Instagram user and early in the space. And she used Instagram to like generate all this like wealth for her brands and things. So like musician, there's a young like a like, oh, she must be 16. There's a girl, Ali Shock, that I follow on Instagram, and she does covers of famous songs, and like, but she records them on the streets in like Europe somewhere. And
yeah,
do you know this girl, Ali Shock?
yeah.
Yeah,
I think
okay.
so.
And so I think when she was like 12 or 13, this is only a couple years ago when that movie with Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga came out.
Yeah.
What's that movie called? A
Uh,
Star Is Born.
A Star Is Born. Yeah.
So that famous song, there's a couple, but there's like one song that like blew up, right? And it's a
The
very
Shallow
emotional,
song.
yeah, the Shallow song. And
Mhm.
I somehow YouTube's algorithm, I had just watched the movie, YouTube's algorithm surfaced it on my thing, and she didn't have very many followers or whatever, but she was singing it as like a 13-year-old, and she was just saying it. She was like one of the most like powerful covers, and she blew up on YouTube just because, you know, teenagers singing a very like intense song, you know. And so these people that have talent now, if they can get in front of the right audience and if the algorithms favor them, you know, there might be other people. You know, the debate is always like, was this inevitable, or was it like, is there always talent everywhere and it's just like people aren't seeing it, you know?
Yeah, I think, well, knowing all my musician friends, there's a ton of talented people out there who just never get heard because they just don't
They don't
have the
have
distribution.
distribution. They don't
Yeah.
they don't get in front of the people who would connect with what they're doing.
Yep. And so that's kind of the exciting thing for me too, is like this NFT career is definitely going to help my musical career because people already on Discord see my website under my profile. And so I have visitors from like all over the world checking out my website now and my Instagram.
Wait,
And
so you're are
it's
you
cool.
so has your Dragon Z NFT helped drive traffic to your Web2 media?
Oh yeah, totally.
Dude,
100%.
this is awesome. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't wait for you to get super famous and then be like, I knew this guy back in the day. By the
I don't
way,
know.
by the way, to you know, it's so funny, things that move your needle and things that don't. Like, I don't care if like a million people that I don't respect or care about like my whatever, some Instagram page or something. I'm just in a different field. I only care about validation from people that I respect and think that are really interesting, right? And
Mm.
it like made my day when Chris Dixon followed me. I was like, oh my god, I've been following this, I'm listening to everything he's saying for like a year. And I mean, maybe he'll unfollow or whatever. I had this before where some billionaire followed me and then like immediately unfollowed me based on like my content. So
Uh,
no, I don't care about that. But it was so interesting. I was like, it's so funny because nothing really moves my needle anymore. I'm just like going, you know, living in Bali or Istanbul or whatever. Like, you just get kind of desensitized to like luxury if you've been like doing it for too long.
mm.
And it was funny because I was like super excited about that. And uh yeah, I wonder if how Dragon Z will, you know, that's something we should definitely explore over time, which is how have NFTs helped artists, like, because it's all about community, you know.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, now people who have like thousands of followers will follow me
That's
unprompted
awesome.
because they see, oh, he's got the dragon's profile picture and
On
they want
Twitter
to, yeah,
or other
mhm,
places. You should also
on
make it
Twitter.
your Instagram.
I was thinking about doing that. I feel like I have to sacrifice one logo for the other, but it would also like raise the brand awareness to what I'm actually doing. And people ask me all the time because I have been posting on my Instagram pictures of my dragon, and people are like, "Oh, what is this thing? Like, what are NFTs?" And so I'm talking to like a million people all at once, trying to
Yeah.
explain it to them.
Amazing. Okay, let's plow ahead for what are the other because it's been like whatever 10 or 15, 10 days plus since we last recorded. What else have you been up to? You've got the Dragon Z NFTs. You have one of them or two of them?
I have one,
Just one.
only one. Yeah.
How many soul is that? What did you mint it at? How much is it worth?
I minted it for 1.1 Solana, which at the time was like $260. And now the floor price is around 250
Holy,
each.
oh my God. Wait, 250.
Yeah.
200
Yeah.
and what is that? Hold on.
It, $60,000 ish.
Holy shit. Are you
Yeah.
serious? So
Yeah.
you've got $60,000 NFT. We got to be careful so that people don't hack you. So you got a $60,000 NFT from your first one, Dragon, that you got in October, right? And
Beginning of November.
beginning of
November.
November, like
Yeah.
30 days ago,
Yeah.
you
Hmm.
made $60,000 up until 2 days ago, and now you just got two. You made what, $5,000 on the Portals one
So far on paper.
on
Yeah.
paper, but that's
Yeah.
real. I mean, the markets are liquid. I mean, they could
Yeah.
always crash, but for now, amazing. So those are your two NFTs. Do you have others?
I have others. I'm in some other projects. They're very, very early stages. This one I just got involved in is, can you hear that or is it too, it's not loud?
I can't hear anything.
Okay, good.
I'm
The
my
Azan.
ears are being bombarded by the rainy season. And can
Oh,
you hear
okay.
the rainy season, or
No,
is it? Oh, you can't. Thank
no.
God for the Zoom software.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, this one project I just invested in called GenoBots, or GeoBots, sorry, GeoBots. They are creating their own DeFi application and they're using the bots, the NFTs, as their seed investment basically in the bank.
Oh, so
And,
they're selling NFTs to raise money, like
and
an
also
ICO.
be like a shareholder as well in the bank.
So
So
so the NFTs represent shares.
yes, pretty much. Mhm.
That's
And then
crazy.
you get their governance token as a result of holding their their NFTs. So this is what a lot of projects are doing now. They're creating their own DeFi protocols and they're releasing NFTs to drop to like help fund the things, the projects they want to do, and also incentivize people to be like early adopters or early investors.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, what else do we have on the docket, or should we save that for the? You wanted to do an instructional video, right? At some point.
Oh yeah, I do. I don't know.
We
I
should
don't think anything is like
we
really,
should push that to the future.
yeah, because
Um,
that's gonna be a little more involved. But
yeah,
I definitely do want to do that because it would help a lot of people, I think, to see exactly how it goes. Because there's a lot of confusion, especially if you don't speak English as your native language. Because what people do during the minting process is they say like this is a rug, this is a scam, because they're trying to confuse the bots.
yeah. You told
And
me about that. That
yeah,
was super
yeah,
interesting, fascinating, uh, like evolution of like the human versus bot behavior. It feels very natural that like we're just so like used to it now. We're not even like in awe that we're like in a
yeah,
human versus bot battle, because right
yep,
now most robots are digital, right?
yeah,
They're just like
mhm,
algorithmic natural language processing AI bots that are messing with you, right? And like scraping your things and trying to like steal the mints or whatever. And all this human behavior around understanding the flaws or like the turning radius limitations of these like bots, and using word mazes to or like what else would the word be, like implied logic to to beat the bots, right? But what what I find super interesting is like it must be early days, because at some point someone is making these bots. These bots are not being generated out of thin air. Like it's at the end point, there's a human designing these bots. And so what's
yeah,
going to happen is you're what you're likely to have, it's going to be a continuous cat and mouse game. Like they're going to innovate a way to be like, okay, now I know what these minters are doing to like prevent my bots from scraping all the like from getting a bunch of like minting early, right? Is that what they're
Hmm.
doing?
Yeah.
So they're gonna figure out ways to like augment it somehow. Maybe they brute force it with like just hiring a bunch of like low cost people to like understand the word mazes, or there's it's a continuous battle. I find that there's so many interesting stories in the Web3 crypto world, and within NFTs is even more interesting. Actually, it's much more interesting in my view because it has so many cultural components and human specific components that are subjective and up for debate, you know? So
Yeah. They're really an example of sociological experiment because
amazing.
everyone is from all over the world and they're all trying to figure out this process. And I feel like this is the space where obviously every country I think is going to end up doing their own versions of NFT drops, and it's not going to be so English focused, especially because I'm sure China has like a million of these things.
Well,
But
China blocked crypto,
yeah,
but if you see on Bonafide, there's still a ton of Chinese character names going on there. So they're using deep. I don't know how, and I first of all, I don't know how strong the firewall is right now. But then second, and it could be like Taiwanese or Hong Kong people buying up stuff. The people who are the Chinese people who are outside of the firewall, but it could also be, well, I think at some point the Chinese are going to do a reversal, right? Where they're
mhm,
going to be like, they're going to figure out a way to have their cake and eat it too, where they'll have crypto, but then figure out strategies and institutions and um, governance agencies, because they're all about controlling their population, right? And so that's why
yeah,
they went to war against Bitcoin. um, it's so interesting because when I was in Hong Kong a couple of years ago, um, I would run into a bunch of people who were children of Communist Party officials, and they're full time.
mm,
It's like, what do you do? Like, because Hong Kong is like a finance center and stuff, and they were being very cryptic, but basically, I would get the same answer all the time, which is the communist systems themselves don't. The people in the system that are implementing the system, which is members of the Communist Party that are there to execute the communist system, they don't trust it for themselves or their children, right? So they're using their children to funnel money out of China using Bitcoin and crypto. So what they would do is they would have their kid go to Hong Kong and walk out with either a seed phrase memorized, like a crypto wallet with a bunch of money, and then transfer it out. And then they would pay massive, like Hong Kong was making tons of money just like laundering corrupt communist money out of China. And so like
wow,
that's why like the communists, part of the reason I think is they don't want to squeeze too tight is it would be like squeezing against yourself. There's a similar
mm,
relationship with Russia and Cyprus, where like a lot of like the corrupt officials within the Russian system, they use Cyprus as their like banking location. So it's a it's an interesting thing. So I'd be curious to see like what role China plays in crypto later, because they're obviously like blocked for now. Even though Binance is technically not Chinese, but it's definitely Chinese. You know what I mean? So the biggest player in crypto are Chinese players. So I don't know. We'll see.
yeah. I definitely think every country is going to kind of have to grapple with how they incorporate crypto into their like world, because especially as we have more and more digital commerce, then we're going to need some sort of integration from like people's wallets, like normal wallets, into their crypto wallet.
Amazing. Okay, this is a good time to wrap up, but moving forward for the next time, let's go over the new projects you're working on, the new discords you're in, the new things that you're thinking about. Because I think we've covered a lot of your past history, and obviously we're in like a bull market, so
Yeah.
you're likely to, in a bull market, everybody looks like a genius. So but there is something to be said, and so we'll see when there obviously at some point going to be an NFT crash, crypto crash, whatever, and we'll see as the tide recedes who's swimming naked and who's actually good at what they do. However, yeah, I think I really enjoy the reasoning and your thinking around the NFTs you're buying, and so and obviously your thinking is going to continually evolve as you're encountering new variables in the space, we don't even know what other people are cooking up in their heads, and then they just come public with it, and then everybody's going to have to reassess each project on its own merits. And because we're so early in the space, each like markets themselves get created by maybe one or two players. Like from my understanding is that NFTs were basically created by CryptoKitties, you know, which sounded so ridiculous.
The Beeple, or that one CryptoKitty one that sold for like millions of dollars or whatever.
Was Beeple a CryptoKitty object?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
No, that was his
on
own.
OpenSea.
Yeah, that was his own thing. But the guy who bought that, he said he paid $69 million for it because he wanted to show people the value of NFTs, and he really did that. Like he made
that's a very expensive pump and dump. Like if you're pumping $69 million into something, you better believe what you're doing. I don't know that he's gonna have to make $1 billion for the risk reward of that to pay off. But or if he has $69 million to burn, I guess it's for his entertainment. You'd be surprised what people have to do when they get so rich that like nothing moves the needle anymore.
I can't imagine that.
Hey, you're well on your way. You made $60,000 on paper this month. That's like banker level.
It's scary.
Well, your 24/7 Discord attention has started to pay off, I would say.
Yeah, I'm in 100 different ones. So
you're in 100 Discords?
Yeah.
Dude, I can't handle more than 2. I've got 2 Discords that I'm a part of, which are mine personally, and that's it. I like have 2 others, like CityDAO and whatever, and I'm just like so overwhelmed. But one of the things is there's just too much surface area to cover. Like there's only, and my thing is like I can only I can't push harder than what my brain can absorb, right? Mm-hmm. Fine, there's people who are smarter than me, and then they have more stamina or like more constitution to like just, you obviously you're pushing it hard, man.
I sleep in 3-hour segments.
I don't know how your brain is functioning right now.
It's kind of going, I look at this whole thing as like a sprint. This is the start. And in the start of a sprint, I used to be a sprinter in track. And
it's worth it if you're making $60K a month.
But I mean, I feel like it's the start of a sprint and you have to stay low and build your momentum, but you're building up to your top speed. And I feel like right now I'm building up to my top speed and maybe I'm at it, but I don't know yet because it's still so new. And I'm trying to also, because I'm a part of this group, which recently got ranked number 4 in the world.
For NFT groups?
Yeah.
Which one? Dragon? Or Portals?
Dragon? The Dragon.
What are the top 3?
CryptoPunks, Bored Apes Yacht Club, and Cybercoms.
Wait, are you talking about top 4 in the whole world in both Ethereum and Solana in all chains? So Dragon is number 2 in the Solana ecosystem?
It's now number 1. We flipped Solana Monkey Business.
Are you serious?
In terms of like the floor price is now more expensive than the cheapest monkey. So it's showing that people are selling their monkeys to buy dragons.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting. I mean, this is we'll end it here, but from my perspective, there's a subjective aspect to art, which is fine, right? And I'm not gonna say that someone spending $1 million on the Mona Lisa or 10 million or 100 million or whatever it is right or wrong, right? However, when you have this community thing, what is the real question that we're going to need to investigate is what is the consumption around NFTs that's going to drive the revenue models for these things, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's a perfectly good business if you open a club or an arena or a restaurant. The entity itself is worth something, but it's only worth something in relation to the revenue and the crowds that they bring through it, right? So
Yeah.
like Portals is worth something only in relation to long term. I'm not talking about the short term uh, uh, projections of what, but the long term value of it will be based on what's the attention or the crowds that they can bring through, and then how much can they monetize off of those people, and then your asset is actually going to have real intrinsic worth. You might end up being like a landlord of 400 rooms in the metaverse and be generating, $1,000 a room or something a day. Who knows? Like, I think the scale of uh, Web3 is still not apparent to people, I think, because the numbers are so big that they're like, it must be fake. It must be some fake thing. And I'm sure some of
Yeah.
it is fake. But in my opinion, Web 2 was 10 times Web 1, right? The internet with like the browser, that got to, I think, a billion people. Uh, Web 2 with the iPhone and Android, that got to 3 billion. But like the revenue models around it as like human behavior started to shift online was 10x Web 1, right? Like Uber is worth like, 80 billion dollars or whatever, like Chrysler, GM, and Ford combined. It's like one app is because of the network effect around it. The value shifted from the actual people who smash the metal together into make moving objects. Like the value shifted from that to the people who like run the network effect uh, app, right? This
Yeah.
Uber. And with Web3, I think it'll be a 10x over Web2 because one of the negative things about Web2 is you started to have this like massive centralization, and like Balaji talks a lot about that, Dixon and these other people, where like not your keys, not your crypto, but like not your keys, not your internet is probably going to be the better way to describe it, because the money aspect of it is only a small fraction, is what NFTs are demonstrating. There's like all this other stuff around Web3 that we're seeing, and the value of something is so much higher when you have strong property rights around it. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? If someone sells me, if someone wants to sell me, I remember there's this great analogy. I think someone made a joke about this, where like when the explorers first came to like, or when the first settlers came from like Europe to like the New York area, they were like, we'll buy Manhattan for like $12 or whatever it was. It was some like super small amount, but it was something, right? And then the Native American tribe from there was like, they were nomadic, right? So in their culture, they didn't have like restricted property rights or anything. They weren't like, fenced herders or anything. So they're like, yeah, you want to buy the moon too? Like, buy anything you want, just give us a free, because in their minds, they didn't understand that like, that what they were selling was like, they were now not going to be able to have access to it. So like restricted property rights inside the internet jacks up the value of that thing if you can actually have a strong, enforceable, limited room,
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's
that's
why I'm
gonna
excited about it so much.
crazy. Well, we have to get into it, and I now deeply regret not taking your advice, even for 8 Sol 3 days ago or whatever it was a Saturday night. I was going out to the club, which I got sick from, uh, as you can hear from my voice. So on to the next one, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. There'll be a lot more, I'm sure.
Yeah, my thing is like I'm so poor that I can only really play in the small. I'm willing to put more money against things that I have higher conviction on, and I can only build the conviction if I spend some time studying it. And you have stronger conviction because you understand how all the pieces are working together, and so you can quickly sift through the shit that you're not interested in, and then you can focus a little bit more on the things that are piquing your interest. And as you go through them and you filter out, and if something is making it through your more and more sophisticated filter, then your conviction is probably going up a lot, right? And literally after you called me, I saw Anatoly retweet the Portals minting, like
Yeah.
literally after that. By the way, this morning he replied to me twice. So
Nice.
I feel like I'm starting to get into the club, the cool kids club of Web3. So interesting, man. To be continued.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.